Welcome to Imagine Your Life with Jenny Lynn. I am your host, Jenny Lynn McKinnon, and I am so excited to welcome you to today's show. We are going to be discussing mirror work, what that is, where it comes from, how to apply it into your life, and how we can build on that and how it ties in to the subconscious mind and how we get to use this to our own benefit to strengthen and really it's the biggest part of how you imagine your life, and then we create that in our reality. It's incredible, the neuroscience and how it's happening in the brain. So let's just jump right in with reviewing last week's episode, which, if you want to go back and watch it, that's great. But it was all about you get what you picture. And that is the fifth law of the subconscious mind. You get what you picture. And when you get what you picture, because the subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is imagined. So, what you imagine eventually becomes real. That is a true principle. And how does that happen? Well, we have been very blessed in our brains to have these special neurons called mirror neurons. And now scientists have discovered that these mirror neurons, they discovered these neurons by studying monkeys. And what is a mirror neuron? I'm just going to read you this definition. Mirror neurons are a class of neurons that modulate their activity both when an individual executes a specific motor action, like touching their nose, and when they observe the same or similar act performed by another individual. Now, to break that down, what exactly does that mean? Well, excuse me. It means that we have these neurons in our brain, specific neurons. Now, neurons are brain cells that create the spark and the electricity that helps the motor and everything else go in our body. Well, we have these specific neurons, and we also share these, like animals have these neurons in their brains, even a lizard. And how it's when they see something else and they can see that neuron and then they mirror that behavior. And I probably ought to back up and just add a disclaimer because I'm not sure if reptiles and neurons, if reptiles actually have mirror neurons. You can check the science on that. But I know that all primates do, and especially monkeys, horses, dogs, animals. They have these mirror neurons, and humans, us, right? It's a big part of why we see our parents do something and we do it. That's why when you have children, if you just have one child, it's a little more difficult. But if you have two children or more, they mirror off of each other. And when you send your child to daycare, they start doing behaviors that they see others around them doing, right? And it's how we learn and we grow. And that brings me into these mirror neurons are being really studied right now, and kind of the hype around them and what science is calling them. They call them the most hyped concept in neuroscience right now. And it drives or studying is social behaviors and looking at adds a whole nother element to why we as humans behave as we do and why in a social culture we behave the way we do. and why you can see somebody on TikTok doing something and all of a sudden it goes viral and then everybody across the world is feeling like, oh my gosh, we have to go do this. You saw this really cool thing on TikTok, and we mirror that behavior and we start to add to that. Now, hopefully, we're only mirroring good behaviors. That's what I prefer. But unfortunately, what happens on the positive also happens on the negative. So that's where we get to watch ourselves and become the masters of our own subconscious mind. And this translates also into our self-talk, which is how we talk to ourselves. Because when we talk to ourselves, which we do all the time, but if you can do it intentionally, we can start to reprogram our brain, rewire our brain. Because first we go through, first, if you can discover the laws, the lies that you've been believing ever since then, when you can capture that lie, like I had an interesting experience this last week with a client, and one of the laws of the subconscious mind is that the subconscious only says yes. It only agrees with what we speak, whatever we think. And so she said, okay, then, if that's true, then if I say, and when I say, I love and accept myself, well, her subconscious mind does not, she is kind of in a bad place and she doesn't love and accept herself. And her subconscious blasted at her immediately, screaming at her, you do not love yourself. You're not worthy of love. And that message from the subconscious mind was much louder than her just speaking, I love and accept myself. Because the programming in her mind was set that I'm not worthy of love. I'm a bad person. I'm bad to the bones. I'm not worthy of love. So how dare you say that about me? And if she says it, then she's a liar because her subconscious mind believes that, and her programming from childhood experiences and more that have been added to it is that she is just a bad girl. And that's the way it is. Well, that is a lie. And it's her and I, but immediately she wanted to believe that she says, you're a liar because I am not, because you told me that if I said, I love and accept myself, then I would immediately love and accept myself. Well, it doesn't quite work like that. We're adults. We're not children anymore. You have to hear it a lot. And those mirror neurons have been programmed on the negative. So now she is well aware of that voice in her head that is screaming at her that she doesn't love herself, that she isn't worthy, that she's a bad girl, which that isn't true at all. This girl has done really good things. She's not bad. The difference between guilt and shame is guilt is I did something bad. And you can recover from guilt. You can recognize, okay, I did a bad thing. I went and I robbed that bank. That was a really bad thing to do. So then we get to reframe it and go, okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to pay that back. I'm sorry. I'm going to pay my restitution. If you rob a bank, you're going to go to jail. But if you steal something from the store, you can pay restitution. Actually, you'll go to jail for that too. But you can make it right. And the difference between guilt and shame is guilt is a feeling of I did something bad. Shame is a feeling of I am bad. Very internal, where you just believe I am bad. I can't do anything. I'm just bad. how do you overcome that feeling of shame, that deep feeling of internal shame? And we've all had moments of shame, but it's not a healthy place to stay. And so, what I'm working on with my client is to understand the programming in the mind that you can't just snap your fingers. It's not a one-time done thing. It's we identify what is the negative programming, what are the lies that I believed ever since then, and then we begin to insert it with truth. And as we examine and look at the lies, go, oh my gosh, I wasn't even accountable as a little 3-year-old when I took on the persona that, oh, I'm just bad because somebody in your life told you you were. And why is that we believe that? Because of these mirror neurons that are in our brain that are working against us as we mirror the people around us and we believe the people around us. Because as a child, we live in a very hypnotic state from 3.5 months conception when you're feeling, begin to feel and become aware of the emotions. That's we create our identity. And if those feelings and emotions are placed upon you. And then as you grow till about 8 years old in normal human development, sometimes 9 or 10, depending on the maturity of the child, right? There's a window there. Everything that that child experiences is accepted as truth. There's no judgment in the subconscious mind. So we accept it as truth, and then that starts our programming. And then we spend the rest of our life living and justifying why we believe the way we do. Now, if we had perfect programmers, we could expect a perfect program. But we don't have perfect programmers. And part of this perfect program called life is to have imperfect programmers designed perfectly for us to learn, to grow, to have agency, to make choices, to build ourselves, to connect. For me, that connection is through Jesus Christ and the plan of salvation, this whole world creation. That's my belief. But it comes down to how and why is through these neurons in our mind and how we were created so perfectly to grow and learn and advance. And how do we do that? We do it through these miracle neurons called mirror neurons. Why are they called mirror neurons? Because we mirror the behaviors of those around us. That is why. Have you ever played Simon Says? We're going to do it right now. So, in a whole big group, this is so fun to play with kids and adults too, because Simon says, touch your nose. Go touch your nose. Simon says, touch your ear. Touch your ear. Simon says, touch your forehead. Touch your forehead. Simon says, touch your chin. Touch your chin. Simon says, touch your eyeball. Touch your eyeball. Simon says, touch your chin. Touch your chin. How many of you are touching your chin or your nose instead of your chin, right? If you are following along with me, as some of you are, you're touching your nose instead of your chin. Why is that? Because the subconscious mind is mirroring what you're seeing. That's why, the saying, actions speak louder than words. That's exactly it. That's exactly that connection that Simon says, right? So, how do we apply this into our lives? The most effective way and a very powerful way to rewire your mind and your brain from those old connections of the past is to actually stand in front of a mirror. Look at yourself in the mirror, and then you tell yourself what you know now, not the lies you believed ever since then. You tell yourself the truth. And as you're going through this discovery process of change, and when you understand why you believe those lies from the past, why you believe that you couldn't ever do anything right, why you were always wrong, why you're not worthy of love. If you had a parent, like we pick up all of these things, excuse me, through our childhood. And remember, it's designed perfectly for us for our learning and growth. And when you believe that every experience of your life has been and is for your highest and greatest learning and growth, guess what? Your life is going to feel so much better because that pressure is gone for perfection. And what does perfection mean anyway? It's not even real, it's a facade because we're all here to make mistakes. And that's how we learn and we grow. And as we're correcting these things, as we're correcting our old programming from the past, the way we step into accountability is by taking care of the here and now. You were not responsible when you were 3, 4, 5 years old and your father and you witnessed your father trying to attempt murder on your mother. That's extreme, but that's a true story. You're not accountable for that and what you picked up from that experience. But you are accountable now as an adult to take hold of your experiences, learn from them, and change your programming. And how do you change your programming? This mirror work, right now, what I'm talking about. This is serious stuff, guys. Not just neuroscience. This is real and it changes lives. So you get a mirror, and as you look in the mirror, look yourself in the eye and tell yourself the truth. The truth that you are worthy of love, that you are beautiful, that you deserve to live on this life and have happiness the same as anyone else, that you are responsible for your life, that you are a winner and you can go win and you're winning in your life, that you can be successful. Even the truth that there is no thought, feeling, idea, image, sensation from the past, the present, or ever to arrive in the future that can prevent you from being successful and living the life you desire. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to live the life you love and love the life you live. That is the human condition. That is what we are here for. We experience joy and life and love and learning. And how does this happen? If you want to accelerate that process and really find truth and reprogram the wiring in your subconscious mind, mirror work is the fastest way to do this. And it has now been proven through science. You know, psychologists have been doing this. Freud, 100 years ago or so, this is what he would do. He didn't know it at the time, but other psychologists would have their clients look in the mirror and tell themselves messages about themselves that are true. And now we know that we're getting the science to back it up. If you want to change your programming, so I encourage you, make a goal. Put a little card on your mirror, those affirmation statements, that when you look in the mirror, say, I love you. And I love and accept you just the way you are. And if those of you that are watching this, wherever you are in the world, I love you just the way you are. Take that to the mirror, that you are lovable, that you are worthy of love, that you are worthy of love. You are worthy of God's love. You were created, you have a body, you have a spirit. You are worthy of love. That is the truth. And let that truth set you free. As you look in the mirror, look deep into your eyes and tell yourself, I love you. You are a winner. You are amazing. You're incredible and you're going to do amazing things today. You are a winner. There is no thought, feeling, idea, image, sensation from the past, the present, or ever to arrive in the future that can prevent you from being successful because you are a winner and that is the truth. That is how you apply this principle, this powerful principle of mirror work. And now I'm going to just tell you a story real quick. You know, I love books. And one of this little book changed my life, continues to change my life. It was written in the 1930s by one of the top salesmen of that time, and it's still a #1 bestseller. And I'm going to show it really quickly in front of the camera. How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. It just disappeared. Very hypnotic, right? Disappeared. There it is. How I Raised Myself from Failure to Success in Selling. From Frank Betcher is the author. Well, he tells a story. He had a really hard childhood, just like everyone else. I do believe you are not tested more than you can bear. And those that are stronger, I do believe we are tested to our ultimate limit. And then we get to decide as we grow where that limit is. And we can change it as we change our programming. Well, Frank Betcher I won't share a lot of his story. I want you to read the book. But at one point, he was trying to be a salesman. And he had somebody say to him, You you never smile. So You have you have such a sourpuss on your face. Why would anyone want to buy from you? Well, when he heard that, he decided, okay, I'm trying to be a salesman, an insurance salesman. How can I better myself? And he started noticing that he didn't smile. He didn't smile. He didn't think he had anything to smile about. And it had been programmed, these frown lines on his face. Have you ever seen somebody with permanent frown lines on their face? Well, he had them. And said, I'm going to change this. And he started practicing in front of a mirror, smiling, just smiling. He'd set a timer. This is the 1930s. And he would time himself in front of the mirror to smile, practice smiling for 5 minutes every day. And then he began to reframe and change the lines on his face to a smile so that he would just normally walk around with a smile on his face. And he had to start practicing before every sales call. He gets so nervous. As he puts it in his book, he would spend a few minutes outside the door just smiling, just practicing smiling, smiling, smiling. Ah, smile, 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 smile. Well, as you smile, and you're smiling in the mirror, especially, right? Then he would be happy and excited and enthusiastic. And then he would open that door and go in and give his presentation. And that's where he really started on his transformation from failure to success in selling, where he became the top insurance salesman, not just in the United States, but throughout internationally, certainly in his company. And then he spent the end of his life teaching all of these principles and writing his book and speaking about it all across the world. But started with mirror work, just like we're doing, with smiling. It's an incredible little story of the power of a smile. So if you can't do anything else, just look at yourself in the mirror and practice smiling. Also, physiologically in the body, when you smile, it sends a message to the brain to release more endorphins, which make you feel happy. And then you feel happy just by smiling. So that's where we begin in this mirror work, and it works. I'm going to read this quote to you. The methods, there are three messages where we learn wisdom. First, by reflection, which is noblest. Second, by imitation, which is easiest. And third, by experience, which is bitterest. That bears repeating because that's a powerful quote that I want to leave with you today. That there are three methods we learn wisdom by, and you get to choose. And we're learning these all the time. First, by reflection, which is noblest. Second, by imitation, which is easiest. And third, by experience, which is bitterest. You know, I don't have, I just, I pulled that quote off the internet, and you know that statistics say that 90% of all quotes on the internet are true. And they say that by the third time you say a quote, you can reference that quote to you. So here's my third time saying this quote on this show anyway. So you can reference this quote as me saying it, that there are three methods we learn wisdom by. First, by reflection, which is noblest. Second, by imitation, which is easiest. And third, by experience, which is bitterest. Quote by Jenny Lynn McKinnon that I pulled off, which I'm very grateful for, from the internet this morning, because it's one of my favorites now. And it absolutely applies. Now, this next quote I can attribute to her name is Peace. That's all, that's all I have is her name is Peace. In the mirror of your soul, find the courage to shine. In the mirror of your soul, find the courage to shine. How do we find the mirror to our soul? Through mirror work, through reflection, as we look into our soul. And a powerful way to do that is using a mirror, an actual mirror. As you reflect back to you, what is good about you? And then tell yourself what is good about you. That you are worthy of love, that you are enough, that every experience of your life has been and is for your highest and greatest learning and growth. The lesson is repeated until the lesson is learned. Learn your lesson, and you don't have to repeat it. It changes, and you're on to a whole new level. Because every experience of your life has been and is for your highest and greatest learning and growth. learn the lesson, and the lesson stops, changes, and you're on to a new lesson. The lesson is repeated till the lesson is learned. Part of how you accelerate the learning is mirror work, exactly what we're talking about today. You activate those mirror neurons faster, quicker, and you change the rewiring, the repatterning, the programming of your mind. And once you have a new program, the sky's the limit. When you get that ant, the conscious mind, and the elephant, the subconscious mind, working together, that is when miracles happen and transformation occurs. And I want to leave you with this last tip today, how I end every show. Tonight, as you go to sleep, repeat in your mind 10 times, one for each finger, the phrase, every day in every way, I get better and better. Every day in every way, I get better and better. Repeated 10 times, one for each finger, as your fingers touch your pillow and you prepare for sleep. In this way, you reframe every experience of your life is now a learning experience. Every experience of your life is now a learning experience. So thank you for joining me today. Every day in every way, may you get better and better. See me next week, and I welcome you back.